Welcome to Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt of the Marquardt Law Firm at marquardtlawfirm.com.
In the beginning, God had one law: don't eat from the fruit of that tree. Then he gave Moses the 10 Commandments. And now we have municipal, state, and federal lawmakers that won't stop creating new laws that might impact you without you knowing it. So listen to Talk Law Radio every Saturday. Listen on YouTube or Facebook, or listen on podcasts while you're walking the dog, working in the garage, or whatever else you do. But this is the third segment. It's the sinners and the saints. Okay, so you know I like to talk about sinners and saints because Martin Luther, the famous theologian from 1517, nailed his,
99 Theses?
95 Theses on the church house door. And I like to talk about sinners and saints because he said we're all sinners. We're born sinners, but because of Jesus's death and resurrection, we're absolved. Well, the sinner this week is going to be Meta, the company that runs Facebook, and Google, because they were sued by a young woman's parents on her behalf. They called her KGM because she was a minor at the time, so they don't use the minor child's name. It's taken some time for the case to come to trial and for the jury to make a decision. But the reason for the lawsuit was that Instagram and YouTube caused her to be addicted to those apps. And by watching Instagram Reels and YouTube videos for 16 hours a day, it caused her to have mental health issues. And so some of these in the lawsuit that she claimed was anxiety, social phobia, depression, suicidal thoughts, body dysmorphia and body image issues, sleep disruption, and behavioral harms. So I wanted to talk to you about this because you were a teacher and a coach for 18 years. Was this period of time when those apps were popular?
As you were describing that, what comes to mind is that the job for teachers has become increasingly difficult over the last 15 years. And I would say it started even before, the social media and things like that with video games and stuff. But it's so stimulating from a sensory standpoint in exactly the same way as scrolling does. It causes, dopamine hits or whatever to the chemicals in your brain. And that's the addictive part. It just makes you want to do it over and over again. That to sit through any type of, classical class or, normal high school setting is increasingly difficult for children and therefore increasingly difficult for the teachers to hold their attention because they just can't match something that is that stimulating.
So what she said is that they did this on purpose, that they engineered their apps to be addictive. Sure. And Meta and Google, they said, well, this child obviously had mental health problems before. Like there must have been some testimony that she had problems at home, and so they didn't cause this. In fact, that they were her coping mechanism. Sure. Well, the jury in Los Angeles didn't buy that, and they ruled that Meta and Google would have to pay something like $3 million total. Which is really just a drop in the bucket for them. But, there could be more lawsuits following, that model, people that just want money, saying that their kids didn't turn out the way that they should have because of those apps. Did you see any of these severe symptoms from your students and wonder, well, it's got to be their phone?
I never particularly thought that it had to be their phone. I definitely think over the course, because again, I started with high school, then I for about 2 years, then I went to college for the 9, and then I finished up in high school at the end. And from the time that I started to the time that I ended, what had increased so much were the kids who needed a lot more help, individual education plans and things like that. And so whether this was a contributing factor, I don't know, but certainly it can't help. I can tell you that, while they were in school, I'm in the back of the classroom one day, and I'm going through the lesson with the kids and talking, and the kids have their Chromebooks open in front of them. And I'm looking at the screen, and it's the digits are typing, but the kid doesn't even have his hands on the computer. And I'm like, what is going on right now? And he said, oh, we're sharing notes. So somebody else in the class is taking, this section of class, they're writing the notes. And I'm thinking, like, I don't really think this is the most beneficial thing for you, that someone else is,
Right.
Doing this. You're really entrusting, somebody else at this point. And I think that's probably, we are really entrusting the lives of our kids right now to these apps and the phones and things like that. I know for my wife and I, it is a big emphasis to really minimize their time on tablets and phones for exactly these reasons: the anxiety, the comparison stuff, and just what's really disturbing about it is you may have them on there to watch, a Christian video or something that you think is good, but you can't control the advertisements and the other things that are going to pop up during that time.
Right.
So, yeah.
So you being a public school teacher, private school teacher, did you do private school also?
I did both public and private for high school.
And so what have you chosen for your kids?
That's a great question. So we're definitely doing the homeschool route. I had a really good experience as a teacher and basketball coach at Round Rock Christian Academy. And when we were living there, certainly, I always felt that as my kids got old enough to go to school, they just ride to school with me, and they would attend at the same place where I was teaching. But as life would have it, we'd opened the Pilates business, and so we ended up moving. But we've definitely chosen the homeschool route, and a huge reason for that is just kind of our observances on how the school system is going and the influences. And so we want to play a primary role in the formative years for our children. And so my wife does a great job homeschooling them. There's so many resources out there to help parents nowadays. It's not nearly as hard as we thought. And I will say this, I really thought my wife would give this up after a year or two, but she loves it.
I was just going to say that my wife and I didn't even give it a thought to homeschool. You really have to have the heart of a teacher, and she would admit she does not. When our children were about 18 months old, they just started tearing up the house.
Yeah.
And so we needed them to go somewhere for a period of time, just so that, spills on the carpet and holes in the wall and all that type of stuff would be minimized. But we really had a great experience with private school at Shepherd of the Hills. And, the Supreme Court said that you couldn't have prayer in schools because minds are so impressionable, in the younger ages. Well, that's exactly why I wanted them in a Lutheran school. So there's some law on this now. Over the years, I would have friends, that were going to Lutheran high school that would want to go to certain universities, to expand their opportunities, really good schools. And they were facing barriers because they didn't have, the state test. They didn't graduate from public high school. There's discrimination against homeschool children.
Yeah.
And so there's a law proposed that would make a graduation from homeschool the same as graduation from a Texas public high school. Have you heard about that?
No, actually, I haven't heard much about that. I know that actually one of the schools where I was a basketball coach was Bryan College in Dayton, Tennessee. And I think, if I remember the statistic correctly, about a third of all of their students, this was a smaller college, but about a third of all of their students were homeschooled. And so, statistics actually show the homeschool kids do really well on the assessment tests and things like that. And so I honestly haven't dug into what you were just referring to, but I just assumed, because my wife is so good about researching that type of thing, that they're able to, get kind of the necessary, paperwork that they need to go into college if that's the path that they're going to go.
Yeah, but colleges and universities should not be discriminating against homeschool students.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Before we take a break and talk about your legacy, I wanted to hear a couple of lessons that you've learned in business. What can you tell people out there? Definitely don't do this.
That's a great question.
Because you've been in other businesses,
Sure.
you've had various experiences. Pilates is just your favorite right now, and in fact, you've got one location near the Dominion. You're opening up another one in Bernie.
Yeah.
What lessons have you learned in that process?
Well, I'll give you a good one here. So we're opening up the second Pilates studio, but when COVID happened, nobody really knew how to react, right? People were telling us this is going to be the rest of your life. You'll go through seasons where it's not spreading very much, then you go through seasons where it's going to be social distancing and masking. And so I kind of, I bought into it out of fear and things like that. We didn't know. At the time, we were shut down for 2 months. So we didn't know how this whole thing was going to play out. So I started thinking, I need something that is essential. And so I started looking at other franchises, and that's how I ended up picking, okay, well, what are some of the things that are not getting shut down right now? The home service companies, right? Everybody's remodeling their home and that sort of thing. So I started looking into some franchises there. And I ended up settling on one home service company that was relatively new, right? If you wanted a big piece of a market in a city, you were going to have to find something new, right? You're not going to find a Chick-fil-A and just be able to put it next to your house
We'll have to take a break. When we come back, we'll get to the lesson, something that you should definitely not do. Stay tuned.
This has been Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt, brought to you by the Marquardt Law Firm. You can learn more at marquardtlawfirm.com. And be sure to listen to the full Talk Law Radio show Saturday mornings at 11 on 9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Most families don't realize they have hidden legal blind spots until it's too late. Wills, trusts, Medicaid planning, even protecting a business. These are the kinds of issues attorney Todd Marquardt helps uncover before they become problems. Todd is the host of Talk Law Radio, where each week he guides listeners through the legal challenges families, veterans, and business owners face, while showing them the practical steps to protect what matters most. Catch Talk Law Radio, Saturdays at 11 a.m. on 9:30 a.m. The Answer, 6:30 a.m. The Word, and now in Houston on AM 1070 and 103.3 FM The Answer, or anytime on YouTube. Planning isn't just about documents. It's about peace of mind, security for loved ones, and building a legacy that lasts. Don't wait for a crisis. Do it before you die.